What's going on, Mech Warriors? Get TS unmuted here.
Microphone activated. Resumed.
Like way of doing it, so I couldn't.
You hear him already?
Hey,
guys.
RJ,
Hey,
can
RJ.
you pull down the Jarl's Bard from the lobby?
Sure.
User
Thanks.
was moved to your
All right,
channel.
so for the viewers tuning in, there's only showing 12 of them right now, but that will probably pick up as the night goes on. Special conversation having tonight, I guess, in a manner of sorts, kind of a follow-up to interview with Chris from a couple weeks ago. Of course, Dane followed that up. Dane and the boys followed that up with their idea on what it would take to make the game fun again for them. And of course, there was a nice big meme in there about me, which I always appreciate. Good. So I got Dane, Bard, Terragato, and Val here with me. Let me adjust the TeamSpeak window so you guys can see all of that. I'll probably have to adjust
My
this
Bard
regularly.
is Terragato on a second computer,
Oh,
so it's just Terragato and Val.
oh, okay. So we're stacking TS, making it look busy. Something. Anyways, what's going on, guys?
Hello.
Hey,
Hey,
well,
RJ.
Val's super sick, and Terragato's been working hard on his own project, and I'm okay too. So that's how things are going for us.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Well, so the viewers know, Dane actually came to me, was it last week? Thought it'd be cool if we did this stream. I thought it was a good idea too, because I honestly, I agreed with most everything Dane said in his video. I think there's only one area that he and I probably disagree on, and that's the fact that I still have fun in the game. But that's
I
not
thought it
to
was
say
gonna be free mix in Vancouver, but
Oh, well. I mean, it's not to say though that I couldn't have more fun in the game. And I think a lot of the points that you brought up in your video would actually help in achieving that. But what specifically did you guys want to chat about? Because I think Terragato mentioned something else actually just before we started.
Yeah, we might get to that later if Dane wants to talk about. If you want to quiz Dane about his video and his.
so Terragato, all right. Terragato doesn't want us to go right into it, so he would rather that we briefly revisit our concerns, and then and maybe just kind of lightly touch on some of the responses and the criticisms to our own concerns that have come up since we put the video out.
Hey, RJ. Let me ask you. Do you agree with Dane's position that the game is generally unfun at the moment, or it's lost the feeling of variety and things are the same? And what did you think after talking to Chris for those, it was a couple of hours at least, I'm pretty sure, and then listening to Dane's 20-minute video bringing up a variety of topics? What did you think? Did you think Dane had any valid points there? What's your take on everything after first talking with Chris and answering his questions and then listening to Dane?
Well, when talking to Chris, I mean, going into it, I knew that there was a lot of things that he wouldn't be allowed to answer just because of the restrictions he's under from PGI. And having seen or heard Chris in previous interviews and how he is on patch day, and just how typically things go when talking to anybody with PGI about balance, there's a lot of questions that seem to go unanswered. There were a lot of questions that I couldn't ask or had to rephrase because Chris isn't allowed to inject his own personal opinion into the answers, because it was, as Dane pointed out in the video, one of the things that he did get out of the video or out of the interview was the fact that Chris doesn't work alone in the balance area. he works with a team of 4 or 5 people. Can't remember how many there. So I mean, I walked away from the video feeling like there were several things that could have been answered better, or deserved a better reply. But at the same time, I went into the video or into the interview expecting that to happen. You know, when I do these videos,
do you think that's, sorry to interrupt, but do you think that's a little disappointing that you bring someone in, but yet you already know that they aren't going to be able to answer the majority of your questions? Coming into something like that where there are going to be some tough questions, do you think it's good enough just to say we can't answer these, or like should they have some better answers formulated before you approach some of these topics?
No, because at this point, you know, I've interviewed enough PGI employees at this point. I got a couple more interviews coming up. I kind of know what to expect and how far to go with it. You know, when you interview somebody like Chris, you know full well that they're going to be totally restricted on what they can and can't say. I hope at a minimum the conversation gets started then, you know, and immediately. I mean, as the interview was happening, there was outrage on Outreach, and the conversation about balance and what he did and didn't say was happening, and that's honestly the best that I can hope for, I think, because if we're all talking about it, we're all voicing our displeasure with certain aspects of the game, and enough of us are making noise about it, PGI is bound to listen at some point. And you know, and a week after the interview, here comes your guys' video, and a lot of people are talking about that. And and you know, you guys tweeted Russ with it, and Russ said he was going to review the video. I was talking with the PGI.
Sorry to interrupt again, and sorry for my harsh voice. I got a flu in the middle of summer, but that did amuse me when Russ tweeted that he was being bombarded with tweets about Dane's video. That I did find that mildly amusing.
Well, and I got confirmation today that it actually has been viewed and been discussed at PGI. You know, I mean, this stuff makes a difference. I interview somebody, they don't answer all the questions, or don't answer the right questions, or I don't ask the right questions. Regardless of how the interview goes, the conversation's happening, and people are talking about it. And Dane comes out with the video, and it does cause a discussion with PGI. So I'm confident in the fact that they at least watched it and are discussing it. And I know that there are some things coming up where that the video will be brought up publicly. Could be, I shouldn't say, where the video could be brought up publicly by PGI employees. And
I mean, so since Dane had his video, which has got probably close to 8,000 views now, I think it was up to about 7,000 last time we saw it. We also had a good chat with Kanajashi, and he did a video, and that's got 3,000 or 4,000 views. Dane's also done a chat with King Harkinian / Soy, whatever his name is now these days, and that was a good in-depth discussion. Didn't quite get as many views, but it was an intriguing conversation. Now we're doing this one here, and we're generating some conversation around the whole topic. I'll go back to the second part of my first question, was that what's your personal opinion, and how much of do you think Dane's original video is valid from your perspective?
I think quite a bit of it. I mean, there's, and I would honestly have to go back and rewatch it again. But I watched it 2 or 3 times after you guys put it out, and I found myself agreeing with a lot more of it than I disagreed with. I mean, because I do still enjoy playing this game, but I think it can be better. And I think a lot of the things, I don't know if while I still enjoy playing this game and I still have fun playing it, I don't know that I'm having as much fun as I used to. And that is, I said it. I said it on Reddit. It's the only mech
That-
game
that's
we
a-
have at the moment. But
It's
and
a tricky statement. Sorry, it's a tricky statement to break down because obviously, as games get older and you experience the full gamut of what it has to offer, games can lose interest. But then something like an MMO or an online game that has the ability to morph and change over time can also affect player experience in positive and negative ways. So it's difficult to disseminate what the difference is between just like losing interest in an older game and also, but how much of that is because of choices and decisions made inside the game. And I think, for, at least for me and probably for Dane and Taro, is a larger part of that for that latter part. But I mean, going back to again what you said you agree with most and disagree with some. What would be the number one thing you agree with and the number one thing you disagree with that Dane stated in his video? On the spot, Johnny.
Oh, I gotta think, because there were several things. The thing I disagree about, and I think this is my own, because I guess in the way that the video was phrased, MWO isn't fun, and that's the part that I disagree with, because it's still, to me at least, and to many, it still is fun. The part that I agree about, that, ooh, throwing me on the spot like that. The skill tree, when I do believe you talked about the skill tree for a bit, and the insane amount of clicks. That's always been a gripe of mine too. I mean, well, I've gotten used to the skill tree. I've been playing the game nonstop for several years now, and I've gotten used to the skill tree. It doesn't mean that the skill tree's implementation was very good.
I mean, it's funny you mention the skill tree because out of everything that Dane mentioned in his video, that has probably been the one that has been the most divisive in the community. Some people think it's great, some people think it's fine, could use some tweaks, some people think it's complete crap, and that's the one that has the most mixed feedback out of all of the topics. So I find it intriguing that you sit on our side of the fence with that one.
Well, I think the skill tree, the whole idea behind the skill tree was a good idea. I just think its implementation was poor. I mean, we only have to buy one mech now. I love that fact. And we can set up the skill tree and customize it specifically to the loadout of our mech. I love that idea. What I don't like is the fact that I'm having to click 100, 200 times to get exactly what I want. I believe, Dane, correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned you could just up the values in some of those skill nodes to decrease the amount of clicking that we have to do to get to the places we need to get to make it work better. And am I right there?
Yes. That's something we mentioned in our video. And as Val was just saying, it is one of the more divisive things. There are a lot of people who definitely prefer the new skill tree to what we used to have. And, it's one of our biggest concerns is not necessarily we want to go back to what it used to be, but that it was like a working project and they walked away with it kind of still lumpy and clay-like rather than in a finished, good place.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, we went from a system that wasn't ideal to a system that was still not ideal. Like in the old system, you had one of those nodes that didn't do anything, and like effectively mastering mech didn't really add that much. Added a module slot, but that like it didn't really increase the performance of your mech much. You didn't get much customization. There are a lot of things that were improved in the new system, but it's still to me flawed in a number of ways. And I guess a lot of those, for me, the biggest thing is the double consumables, like the double strikes, double pull shots was just like a completely changed the way the game is played, at least in my experience, and at least definitely in the competitive realm as well. And I'd even say even in community warfare, like the amount of strikes that can come through, like every strike taking two, every mech taking two strikes, and you got 4 mechs. Like the amount of strikes in community warfare effectively doubled, and they were so potent. And I just that's the one gripe for me. But there's a whole bunch of other things. But for me, if they're gonna, even if the skill tree remains the same as it is now, I really just want to see quality of life improvements, and the user interface to be more information friendly.
Yeah, I agree with all that, and I kind of, the double strikes thing has, I like it and I don't like it, because when you have a scrub like me as a pilot, those double strikes can really crank up your damage number, right? But at the same time, getting hit by 6 to 8 strikes a match, you know, can really wear on you. The whole point of taking out double strikes originally was because it was too OP, and then now we have it again. That never, I mean, if it was too OP originally, and so they took it out, why is it okay now?
And then
to put him back in?
It back in.
So,
we put him back in while being buffed as well. Don't forget that.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think that they could, if there was one area of that skill tree where maybe you had to click a lot and unlock a lot to get to, would be the dual strikes. It should, because right now it doesn't. I mean, I can pull up the game. I'm gonna pull up the game on stream right now, and let me see here. I'm gonna make this nice and big. I'm gonna go to the skill tree on this particular mech that I'm in.
I'm pretty sure it's 11 points to flesh out double cool shot, double strike, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, and I don't even usually bring double cool shot. I just go straight for the double strike. I usually just put three consumable slots open on my mech, so that I can just do the like I used to before. So I unlock the double strikes and put one cool shot in usually and call it a day. And so if I'm just doing that, it's five skill notes. It's all it takes to get there. And that, to me, to get that much power for that little bit of a sacrifice. I mean, that's one area. If they're gonna keep it in, it should cost us way more to get to it.
To PGI's credit, I think the changes they made, increasing the time between strikes and the time the strikes land, I think that has lessened their impact a lot for most people. I think you get the most out of strikes now when people don't want to move positions. It generally means you've boxed them in and they can't go anywhere else, so then your strikes become more effective. So I think some of the changes they made there were good. Whether it's enough or not, I don't know. I still think removing the second pull shot from the game, the 2 pull shots is just, especially in the first implementation with the laser rebalance and things, it made laser mechs and energy mechs extremely powerful. And again, I know it's been looked at, but they're still in there, and they still have an impact. To me, they still have a significant impact on very high alpha, very heat heavy mechs.
Well, they just nerfed the clan skill tree. If I let me see here. Let me get into a clan mech that I know is super hot. One of my Hellbringers, for example. Yeah, it was the heat gen. Clans just got their heat gen nerfed, and so now we don't get the benefit so much of the heat gen. And that was supposedly, to bring them more in line, or to help set up the balance better between IS and clan.
Was that the December patch or January patch?
It was January.
So it's still pretty early to see how that plays out.
Oh, we're already noticing a difference. I mean, I'm removing heat gen now from a lot of my mechs and investing more into the operations skill tree, where I got heat containment and cool run. I wouldn't before. I wouldn't invest so much in operations and try to get most of the heat gens on my mechs. because I think the heat gens were more effective. Now I'm just running over to the operations tree and investing more in heat containment and cool run. You know, because unless it's an IS mech, if I'm running a 5 large laser battle master, I'm getting all the heat gens because they still have the full effectiveness over there. Land side, not so much.
Yeah.
What's this link, Dane?
That is the MWO active players. People have just been discussing in chat about player retention over time. And we don't have to get into it now, but that's a chart that shows them.
Okay.
To be clear, it's just
Let's-
the active quick play numbers. Like, it doesn't include faction play, and it's not what you see on Steam. It's just quick play.
That's still a reasonably good indicator of player numbers, because people that do play Community Warfare might play a game of quick play, or you're always going to have proportional numbers between the two. I think it's a reasonably good indicator.
How do you guys get these numbers? Where are you drawing your data from?
We
Those
get
numbers.
They come from the quick play leaderboards that PGI puts on their website, and you can basically look and see how many unique names there are per month, or you can see how many matches are played per month in total, and stuff like that.
So you guys. Okay.
So I don't know if Dane, do you want to break down what you're looking at there on that chart? I'm assuming
No,
RJ's
do
put it up on the stream.
I'll put it up right now.
Not yet.
Give me 1 second.
He's not sure.
No, I'll put it up. I mean, we're here to discuss. Let's discuss. Let me get the right screen here. I got too many. Oh, wait, dot. Bottom center, and we'll move that right up the board. All right, let's discuss it.
All right, so here is the active players per month. It shows you every single season, all 19 seasons that we have had. That's reason why is because that's the amount of time we've had to pull data from PGI's scoring. Before they had the seasons, there was nothing for us to draw the data from, so there isn't anything. So that's what we're looking at, 19 months. And we have organized it into 3 different categories, and that is players who play 10 matches or more, players that play 100 matches or more, and players that play 200 matches or more. And so you can see that that's the blue is 10. So that's everybody who in 1 month is playing between 10 and 100 matches. The scoreboard that PGI uses, they don't register matches if it's under 10. Is that right, guys?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so we don't know all the players who get on in that month and played 9 matches or less. They are not counted in this. They don't make it. Those poor children. And this just shows you over time the amount of players in each of those 3 categories playing. And so if you just look at the entire thing, you can see the total amount of players over time, or at least the total amount of matches, right? Wait, no, players. Yeah. Terragato, you made this,
So
didn't you? Or Val?
No, I made it.
This is Taro's chart, yep.
What do you say, Val?
So I was just going to say, one thing to note is we had a spike come this December and even January to some extent, which I think is due to PGI giving away those 2 free mechs on Boxing Day, and like sending emails out to everyone. I think tip of the hat to them. I think they did a good job in drawing people back into the game. And maybe people played a game or 2 on Boxing Day and were a bit more intrigued, and then wanted to play some more in January, because Christmas period around Boxing Day and Christmas is difficult to get on. It was right towards the end of December. I think if they'd made that offer at the start of December, I'm not sure what the January numbers would have looked like, but because that offer was made towards the end of December, that a lot of players wanted to still play and investigate and learn more about the game and how it's gone. So I think the January numbers are up very high, but so they did a good job drawing people back in. But it's going to be interesting now to see the next couple of months and see, even just in the February numbers, what the player retention is like. As we can see, the general trend has gone from about, say, 43,000 playing the game casually down to about 28,000 in November, which is about a fall off of roughly a third, give or take. Even numbers don't split hairs on a percent with me, guys, but so it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of months. But the general trend has always been down, heading down since the start of this. The blue section is what I would call the casual players, and then the red and orange sections are more of your hardcore players, guys that are playing 100 or 200 games a month. And to be real, that's been reasonably static. It has dropped a little bit, but that's a lot. Seems more static than the casual players. But we can infer from this, like when Dane talks about his video and the game becoming unfun, and he sees his friends sort of not playing with him and playing other games. I thought it would be interesting to at least put this chart up and discuss it, because Dane's experience also kind of falls into line with the numbers that we're pulling from the leaderboards and the general player experience, which is that the population is decreasing, and like your own personal experience of having to maybe wait longer to get games in queues, that's reinforced by looking at this chart and seeing the numbers are falling as well. Does that make sense? Do you want to add anything more onto that, Dane? I think it was just important to say that people might go, oh, well, the game's fine, and Dane doesn't know what he's talking about, but I think it's important to relate, like, my experience and Dane's experience to people playing other games and things falling apart around us a little bit, to the larger player experience, which is generally a general downward trend in player numbers.
I think I could see that, and I think that's been kind of my experience too. I've been playing this game since closed beta, and I've seen people leave the game sometimes for over a year and then come back and be active for a year, and be in the 228 for 2.5 years now. I've seen plenty of players come, like just in the comp team that I led last season of MRBC. We had players that came back just for MRBC and played for a while for that, and then left again. It's something that I've always noticed back and forth. The people that I regularly drop with in this game is constantly rotating. Like, most of the people that I play the game with now are not the same people I was playing with 2 years ago. But in drops, in standard public drops, I'm seeing people that I haven't seen in this game since probably 2014 who are coming back now. But to look at the number, the way the number is going down like that, it's a little bit of an eye opener to me, I guess. So, kind of.
Were you not aware of that general trend, or?
Well, I think I suspected it, but at the same time, people have been saying that MWO is dying since 2012, 2013, whatever, and I just think I've always kind of just blown it off. I still don't have that. If I do have to wait a long time for a match, it's usually not that long. And in faction warfare, yeah, I don't play faction warfare very much, but sometimes you can wait for a while there. But in the public queue, so I don't find myself waiting that long. It doesn't.
I'll just interject. Yeah, I'll just interject a little bit in there, because you're playing in general NA times, which I think you're a little bit spoilt when that's when most of the people get on to play.
Yes,
when you play outside those NA prime times, I'm Australian myself, so I've been playing. I took a little bit of a break, sort of November, December. I was a pretty active player up until then. I've started playing a bit in January again as well. I brought one of my other mates back. He's been wanting to play a bit with the new tech, and I can generally, in my prime times, which is like, I guess, early morning for you guys, I can find games in solo queue with a 5-minute wait or so. But when I jump in just a 2-player group with a mate of mine, Spoon, the queue times were 25 minutes, and then we stopped queuing. So while NA times and probably EU times are still, the peak times are still reasonably popular, if you're playing outside of those times, it can be very difficult to find games in non-solo queue. And I think as player numbers decline, it becomes like this like self-fulfilling prophecy that you want to play a game but you can't get a game with your friends, so then you just stop playing, and you tend to lose more and more players like that. So numbers can reach a critical mass. And so when we look at that graph and numbers are falling off, it just and then it matches with mine and Dane's own personal experience. We want this game to succeed. We want to keep playing it, and that's, I think, a lot of the big reason for hopefully trying to introduce some changes and bring these topics up to talk about, to get players back involved and feeling happy with the game again, and getting them connected to the IP again.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It's not all just doom and gloom, because if you look at the chart and how many players has PGI brought back in December with those giveaways and those emails they sent out, we went back.
Oh, absolutely.
Progress.
That's a really
we went back.
That's
like,
awesome. I don't think
full
enough.
year of players that we lost. We got them back, but the question is, will they stay around? And I think we have a chance to keep them around if we keep things moving in a good direction.
Well, have you guys seen my video of my students playing MechWarrior?
No.
I think that's a no. Okay, so
No.
I'm
That's weird. We don't watch children on the internet. Come on, man. This is a polite situation here.
All right. Well, I'm a school teacher by trade, and I have a group of kids that I work with after school on Mondays, and I teach them how to build gaming PCs, and we explore PC gaming and everything. And I took a video of them all playing MechWarrior online recently, and these are kids from grades 4 through 8, and they all tell me that they like the game, but they don't like that. They don't like how hard it is to learn. They don't like how hard it is to get. Whereas, you take a 5th grader who can sit down, if his parents let him, of course, with Call of Duty or Battlefield and just get in and start playing. They know exactly what to do and how to do it. Because many first-person shooters are pretty much the same. But when they get into a game complicated like this, they struggle with it, and they'll play it for a day, 2 days, 3 days, and then they kind of give up on it because they can't figure it out. And I wonder if that is part of the problem here with at least the newer player base. I mean, I've worked with a lot of brand new players in this game, and out of all the brand new players that I've introduced to this game, and over the course of the past 4 years, there's probably been well over 50. I can count in one hand how many of them are still actively playing the game.
Well, you do have to realize, I think, that our player base is very unique. I mean, we don't have a lot of children playing this game in general. Like, this is a very, like, we know it's a niche game, and it's also an old game. It's for sad old people like us. You don't run into too many 14, 15, 16-year-olds that you'd run into other games, just running all over the place, squeaking. And so there might, I mean, you're definitely onto something, but we've always known too, since this game, released, right, in open beta, how the difficulty, and then we would get ridiculous things being told to us, like, well, that's why we're doing third-person view, because we've decided that's going to really, that's going to make it easier for the for the people playing the game the first time. And I just don't know, if you. My concern, though, despite that ridiculous thing they said that had nothing to do with anything, I don't know if they can take MWO as far as the game itself to a place where you can get a 14-year-old tweaker and throw them on here, and they're going to be able to figure it out and love it in 3 seconds. Like, I feel like you'd have to dumb it down a lot. Or the other option is that's the front end stuff. That's the tutorials and the preparation and the I mean, I don't think PGI's ever really done a very good job at that. I think, 2 years ago, they introduced the current tutorial mode, the cadet stuff, and that was kind of cool. That was better than it was before, but it was something they kind of dropped after that. Like, they didn't take it to the next level.
Which is what I thought they were going to do. I mean, with the introduction of the AI in the tutorial, I mean, I think we all had visions of what was to come for future game modes in the game. But yeah, the best we got was escort mode. What you do?
Yeah, it's
So-
kind of sad that we
I mean,
had
and that's
we laid all of this groundwork for the MechWarrior Academy, and the guy who worked on it, the guy who introduced it, he is actually working on MechWarrior 5 right now, so he doesn't really have the time to update the Academy to do work on the tutorial for new players, so we're kind of stuck with what we have just because of PGI's manpower.
And I do want to say the tutorial was awesome. I think that was a major improvement.
Yeah,
whether or
when
not
that
was
first
enough,
came in,
I don't
yeah.
know. But when that came in, that academy was great. That was top notch.
Yeah, that was fun. I was honestly very excited when that came in. It was a brand new shiny thing, and that was nice.
So we have other brand new shiny things coming. Is there any excitement for these new shiny things that are on the way?
You mean you're talking about mech packs?
No, I'm talking
Solaris?
about Solaris with the redesign of some of the maps specifically for Solaris. New city map coming in. Or, I mean, are any of you guys?
It's very difficult for me to get excited about something that is so far away, and with a company that typically tends to extend their deadlines. I don't want to be too nitpicky on them, but keeping deadlines is not something that they've been necessarily fantastic on. So it's hard for me to get excited, even though I think Solaris has a potential to be a lot of fun. Until until they state it's a couple of months away, or it's next month, or it's in 2 months, it's very difficult for me to get excited about that. Does anyone feel any different?
I'm really excited for Solaris, and I just really hope that everybody else is, so I have people to 1v1 against.
Right.
We've actually got to get to Solaris first. It's no good having Solaris released if the population drops right off and no one else is playing the game. That's one of the things of having such a long release schedule for that. Is it's very far in the future. We've got to get there first.
And then there's so much now. You don't want to. We don't want to go be looking into the future and going, well, whenever this is released, it'll be good, or this will be good, or something, because we just want to make it fun now. I can't predict how great Solaris will be or how terrible Solaris will be. I can't tell you if it's going to be another escort mode, if it's going to be another competitive queue that is pretty much dead, or if it's going to be great and it's going to bring life back into the game. I mean, I think that is beyond the purview of what we're doing here and what we want now. What we want to keep going and keep this game just kind of entertaining for the people playing it today.
Okay. So let's what's the number one thing that you guys collectively agree on is the first thing that should be, if PGI were watching this right now, and there's a chance one or two of them could be watching, I don't know, but if PGI were watching this right now, what is the one top thing that you think you guys would bring up with them that needs to be fixed?
Actually, we kind of
Taro.
have a small plan in regards to that, because not everybody's going to agree across the community what is the number one priority for PGI to address. We're all going to be at each other's throat arguing, oh, it should be skill tree, the skill tree should be smaller, oh, it should be consumables, we should nerf consumables, oh, it's laser vomit, it's overpowered, oh, the matchmaker is terrible. If we're all sending conflicting signals to PGI, what is PGI supposed to do with that? So right now I've made a post on Outreach HPG and the forums, and what I'd like to do is get the community on one topic. And the first topic we want to cover is just going to be weapon balance, just to see if we can get the community to agree about one of the things that is most divisive in the community, and see if we can whittle it down to something that everybody says, yeah, I'd like PGI to make these changes. And we can send them to PGI and say, hey PGI, we as a community have discussed this, we've made a proposal, and we'd like you to review it, because we've all come together, put our heads together, and for the most part have said, this is what we want.
Who is we, Terragato? Tell them.
Well, we is, if you look at the post on Reddit or the forums, this was all started by Bearclaw. After RJ Base had a interview with Chris Lowry, just on the topic of balance, balance was just the catalyst. It's not specifically Chris Lowry's fault. The interesting thing about Chris Lowry is I liked everything he said in that interview. Like, it sounds like he's using metrics to balance the game properly. He sounds like he's using spreadsheets and numbers to balance the game properly. He sounds like he's using first-hand experience to balance the game properly. Everything he says, I like. He sounds like he's doing the right thing. The only thing is when we actually get changes into the game, into the patch notes handed to us, we go, we're scratching our heads like, what happened? Some of the things are just like, this doesn't make sense, or this is backwards, or whatever. So, yeah.
I think a lot of that. I mean, I shared the video with Dane when we were talking, on Discord last week, and somebody reposted it on Reddit today. A video why we should buff more than nerf, and I think a lot of what that guy says in that video has to do with a lot of the changes and stuff that they make. When I'm reading the patch notes, like last patch, I took off work early. And I did a patch day. Actually, I didn't even go to work that day because I didn't get enough sleep the night before. So I did a patch day stream, kind of like what Impy used to do. And I was reading the patch notes as we were waiting for the patch to come in, and I saw the nerfs to PPCs and to the heat gen nodes for clan, and I was just shaking my head, and I was just like, why nerf? I mean, again, that video I think actually really works, because when something gets nerfed, we feel like we're losing something, that our quality of life is being ruined in some way, and when you buff, we feel like we're gaining. And so if we constantly have more nerfs than we do buffs, even if the nerfs are actually good nerfs, if they're nerfing something that everybody felt should be nerfed, it's still a nerf. And when you have nerf on top of nerf on top of nerf, it just feels like why?
I mean, that was the whole entire topic of Dane's video. Basically, they have buffed some, and you look through the patch notes, and they must have gone through the last 9 months patch notes probably over the course of the last week, probably another 5 or 6 times, just going back and looking at everything and trying to assess what went wrong and how everything came together, and to get this sort of big mix of unhappiness that I'm at right now, and I think resonates with a lot of other people. And they do some things as well, but the nerfs have had much greater impact on how the game plays than the buffs that they've been making. This is what I think Taragato was getting to with his, communal think tank, and who was actually in that, Tara? Who helped put together that post that you were that you just put up on Outreach?
Well, yeah, like I said, it was that interview about balance was the catalyst, and I think it was Bear Claw grabbed a whole bunch of people. It was like, I want this person and this person and this person, all these people who are good at different aspects of things. Like, I'm good at like numbers and spreadsheets and looking at the mechanics of the game, and then we have like the group of people is myself, Navid, A1, and Metacanic are 3 guys that are doing a lot of the work, and we've also been taking a lot of input from Bowser and Bearclaw and Fragosaurus Rex. So if you know any of those guys, they're a large part of. They're what this is, what we're doing, and hopefully we want to grab a lot of feedback from the community on what balance changes should be. So any of those people, they're listed at the bottom of my posts on Reddit and the forums. You put your comments in those thread, and those people will be looking at them. We'll try and make the best proposal we can out of what we got, starting with what we started with.
Well, that's a really big undertaking you guys are going at there, because I mean, if one thing I think all of us know, this community is so widespread in opinion. I mean, half the time when things get nerfed in this game, it's because there's enough clamor out there for it to be nerfed. Maybe not from the comp side, but from... I'm sorry, Dane. Did you have something to say?
No.
Okay. But the casual players, the casual player base, it you know, they get on the forums or wherever, and they seem to scream the loudest. Because then next thing you know, something that we love and have gotten used to, Gauze PPC, for example. Is that something that, was that a nerf that had to happen? Or could there have been a buff somewhere else to counter that better? You know,
my personal view, and this is just my view, it doesn't represent everyone, but I think the 60 pinpoint alphas probably did need to go much in the same way that the 70 or 80 point laser vomit alphas probably needed to go. But I think they went too far. I think they could have kept it to a 45 pinpoint, and that probably would have matched up with like reasonable laser vomits and reasonable SRM volleys. And I just think that they probably went a step too far with that one. You know, having 2 PPC, 1 Gorse, or vice versa, I think is reasonably okay. And they could have even kept the same heat penalty that they've got for the 4 of them together. Now they could have kept that massive heat penalty on there and just like dropped the 3rd one altogether and just said 3's okay, but if you use 4, it's going to hit you massively. And I think that would have been fine. But again, that's just my opinion. Everyone's got their own, and some people say Gorse PPC was okay and blah 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 blah. But I think, I don't want to generalize, but I do honestly feel that most people were not happy with a 60 pinpoint alpha. Removing a mech from the game in one shot, while it might give you, the player, a bit of a smirk, isn't fun for the person that got deleted, and for the playing that light, and for the team that he was on. I think 60 pinpoint is probably a little much.
but isn't that kind of what we have now with the heavy gauze? I'm seeing heavy gauze running around all over the place.
Wow, don't get me started on that one, RJ, because I'll make a lot of people unhappy. I mean, that's also another reason for me. I mean, I think Heavy Gorse, don't get me wrong, I think Heavy Gorse now, as it is in a fine place. There's a lot of drawbacks. You have to run a standard engine. They do explode. It's got very short range to get that 50 pinpoint. You got the screen shake, so you can't follow it up with other damage immediately. I do think Heavy Gorse is fine, but what I would point to and say is that if it's okay to have a 50 pinpoint from Heavy Gorse with all those drawbacks, I would say that it's probably okay to have a 45 pinpoint with a little bit more range on some other mechs, because as you fire at longer ranges, it becomes much harder to hit things, especially smaller mechs. So I would use Heavy Gorse as a reason to justify upping Ghost Heat on PPCs and Gorse by 1. And again, this is just my opinion. It's not something that I'm pushing on everyone. It's not what they're pushing in the balance scope that Terragado's mentioned. That'll be a community-focused thing, but just my perspective is Heavy Gorse is fine, but that probably indicates to me that you can probably lift the Ghost Heat limit a little bit on some other mechs, and then bring back just that one little change would probably bring back some play styles that people would enjoy.
And that's actually a thing we decided to go with, so the community can give us their thoughts on whether they think that's the direction we should go with that.
Okay, well, guys, you're hearing it. It's on the forums. Do you guys have a link to the forum topic on that? I posted the one on Outreach.
Terragado will give it to you.
Okay.
He'll pull it up in just a second.
Yeah, put that in the Twitch chat. Put the Reddit one in there again.
Nightbot might nuke me for it.
No, it shouldn't. Or if you give it to me here.
Oh, there you go. You got it. Yep.
That's the Reddit one. I was looking for.
He wants the MWO.
Yeah, you got the one to the MWO site too.
The forums, Terragado! Come on now, man!
It is there.
There we
Okay.
go.
Alright, so there's your links. Viewers, there's 76 of you watching right now. Get on the forums, get on Reddit, voice your opinion, let your voice be heard so that these guys can formulate their... You guys are using this to formulate your proposal better.
Yeah,
right?
this is all about just focusing everyone into the same thing, so that PGI doesn't have to deal with just the sea of noise that we constantly emit into their ears. I want to be able to channel some of that to. I just want to sit back and listen with my cohorts here that we've put together, and just look what everything says, so we can figure out what everybody wants, basically.
I mean, not that that's possible.
No, like I said before, that's a huge undertaking because
absolutely.
The opinions of everybody are going to be so out there. I mean, as far as differences and everything, it's what I want for the game is not going to be the same as what Tom, Dick, and Harry over there want for the game. They just want to make Lerms great again, right?
Tom, Dick, and Harry are bitches, RJ Bass. They can go Lerm in the corner.
And then the thing is, if enough people are disagreeing about something, then it's probably not a thing we should change, right? And so if we end up just knocking things off the list, like right now, we've basically changed, like our proposal to start with basically changes every single weapon in the game in some respect or another, and that's a massive list of changes. And personally, I don't feel like that's appropriate to put in front of PGI, because it's like basically a complete rebalance of the game. But this is our starting point, and if people are arguing about, like, oh, I don't think Snub-Nosed PPC should be all modified like that, and other people are like, yeah, it should be modified like that, and they're arguing back and forth, it's like, well, maybe we should just leave it alone. And eventually this list is going to get whittled down until there's very few things left, and if that's all we can send to PGI, but we do come up with something we can send to PGI, I'll be happy.
Yeah, it's the white noise. I mean, everybody's unhappy, obviously, or not everybody, but let's say a majority of people are unhappy. I feel like that's been clearly established by this point. You've got dropping numbers. My video, I've made videos forever, and this has been the most popular video I've ever made by more than half. Like, I've got the oldest video I have on MWO, where I'm standing on a mountain dressed up as a Viking screaming at the sky, has 3,000 views, and this video is getting close to 8,000 views now. So clearly this one, hit a vein. It is in the zeitgeist of the community. And when that happens, though, and everybody tries to tell PGI something, you get a lot of white noise. You get people with 1,000 different theories and 1,000 different experts, and everybody's so confident, and they end up tearing each other down. And if PGI even listens to it, they just hear that white noise. They hear that buzzing noise, the sound of the brown sea churning, and they just go, well, they don't know what they want, so we'll just do what we want. And the hope here is that they've winnowed away. They've got some things that make a lot of sense, and they're able to back. They'll Terragato and his cabal or his gulag or whatever you want to call that group. They're there to explain it, to defend it, and to change it. And the hope is that we give them this very here's this one golden plan that's glowing and beautiful, and you don't have to listen into the toilet bowl of everybody else with all their little kind of pet plans, and they want urban mechs that have long tom guns and stuff. But
the urban mech thing, that one really bugs me. People want their urban mechs to be great, and it was never supposed to be a good mech. It was a joke from the beginning. It was even PGI even said it. This is not supposed to be.
You know what? But once it's in the game, RJ, once it's in the game, I think you're obligated to provide it with a level of minimum viability. So,
and I think I think that's the goal of PGI actually set out with it, because I remember Russ was constantly pulling the community on the opinion of what the engine cap should be for the Irby, because it's so low, and they had to break the rule to make it a higher engine cap than it's normally supposed to be. So it's like they were invested in making it minimally viable in terms of like this joke mech, and I think they did a good job.
The Irby is fun. I don't know. That bugs me.
I just picked a mech out of the air. I know nothing about the urban mech.
Look what you started, Dane.
I just pulled it out of the air. I own one, I guess. I don't ever run it unless we're making like a video. But we don't need to have a sideline about the viability of the urban mech in the game. But and you know what? There's a lot of people who doubt that this will be successful, because the reality is, in the past, PGI has been, let's say, suboptimal in their interactions with the community. I know that multiple times when they were doing the World Championship Mech Warrior tournament, they invited leaders of the community of the competitive community, people who have ran leagues before, to come and give them advice. And for the most part, they brought him in. They had a few conversations. They brought up reasons why they did things or didn't do things, and then PGI didn't listen to anything they said and did their own thing, which often ended up having lots of issues. And then the same thing, let's say, happened. We had this earlier with Skill Tree. I'm not saying that I completely supported Salama's or Pencil Click's plans on Skill Tree. But, there was a sizable segment of the community who came together, who, tried to talk to PGI about Skill Tree and push an agenda to make it better for the community. And PGI, again, they brought them in, they listened to them, and then they said, no, we're not going to do that. And it went to the wayside. And so here we are today. And what's our plan? Well, we're going to get these people together, and they're going to make this plan, and they're going to go to PGI, and PGI is going to listen to them and then go, okay, but we're not going to do that. I mean, PGI haven't done everything that the community wanted, but we can also point out, we can come up with examples where they have done what the community wanted. Let's take Long Toms for example. I wasn't playing CW that much when Long Toms were a thing in the game. But people complained about them left and right. There was even a town hall about it, and Russ seemed unwilling to remove Long Toms from the game. He said because that was the end-all thing that you get for scouting. You get the Long Tom, and then you dominate the planet. But then a patch or two later, Long Toms were taken out of the game. So I mean, we can find instances where he has listened, or PGI has listened to the community too. Maybe not as many as where they didn't, but still, it seems like, I mean, just from what I know, they do listen, and they do talk about these things. So I think if enough of the community can come together with this thread on Reddit and on the forums that you guys have started, and you guys can make a good, decent proposal based off of the needs and wants of the community. And PGI knows that this is the community speaking. I think the chances of it are better than even something like this. Well, I mean, obviously, we are hoping that this can happen, because why would we be wasting our time here if we thought, PGI doesn't care, they're going to throw it in the dumpster, and we're going to go back to laser bombing each other until the game dies or whatever. We want it to succeed, and there have been a few times when you could say that maybe the community did reach them. Although, I mean, there are a few, and it's usually small. And I mean, Long Toms, that took a lot of work. Russ really did not want to get rid of them. And then you have the same thing with that mini map, that snafu.
It's something that something that shouldn't have been in the game. It took a long time to get the Long Toms removed.
And I know that in their pre-testing, in their group of people that often test, their own test server that's non-public and private, that the map thing was brought up by someone being a big issue, and they were dismissed to the point where they were removed from that internal testing area because PGI, they had their own agenda and they didn't really want to hear the yes men say no. I mean, it came out and everybody thought it was terrible. Everybody hated it. PGI didn't want to change it, and they finally changed it. But those are also very small things. Like that's a little piece. Like Long Tom or the map. It's not a lot. It's a small rollback to larger things they have done instead.
Okay, so where do we go from here then? We got the threads up. The community will hopefully get their voices in on that. What's left on the agenda? Well, for us to discuss tonight. What are you guys thinking here?
Well, for one, I mean, what I've been trying to do really is keep everybody kind of riled up. I guess keep the revolution alive. That's why I had Terragato working in the gulag with his fellow comrades. That's why I came on here to talk to you. That's why I talked to our great king Harkinian. That's why I spoke to Kanajashi, or however you say that. And that's, I don't want PGI to release like, oh, we're gonna bring out a new mech, and then everyone's like, oh, and then they forget about it. I want I want people to be adding on Twitter at Russing him about this. Even though he said, oh, we talked about it, I want them to still be doing it. I want this conversation to come up over and over and over again until PGI can't just go, okay, we talked to these guys and we threw it in the dumpster and now we're gonna move on. I want them to say, we talked to these guys and we threw it in the dumpster, and then I want everybody to take a poop in a letter and then mail it to them, and then they're like, oh, our mailbox is full of poop, and then they're like, maybe we should pull that out of the dumpster. I feel like we're at a point where I don't want PGI to dismiss us. I don't want PGI to act like this is just another one of those uppity community things that they can just walk away from and everything will work out, because everybody that plays this IP loves it. I want them to take a double take, to listen a little bit, and to make some changes for the better, so that we can at least see that decline stop, and maybe, if nothing else, stabilize our players until they bring back some interesting features, till maybe Solaris drops, or there's some interesting things that happen after MechWarrior 5 released, or something like that. That's what we want, that's what I want, that's why I'm here talking to you, and anybody else who will listen to me, and that's what I want everybody else to do. Let's not let them just walk away from us this time.
Well, that was kind of my original intention when I did the interview with Chris. I mean, I knew there was only so far I could go with the interview. I knew there was only so far that Chris could go, but I didn't know, but I really hoped the conversation would get going. Yeah, you're right, because a lot of times these things do come up. A video is made, or a big conversation happens on Reddit or whatever, and then a day later, when the post is no longer on the front page of Reddit, we stop talking about it. This is, yeah, okay. I get that's a good point.
Yeah, and then we silently go on and grumble about it for the next few months, but there's no concerted effort of giving a care.
And I don't think there's much more to say than that right now. I don't know what, if anybody has questions, if anybody wants to talk about things, we can go into it. But I mean, that's pretty much it. We've laid out our problems with this game. We've laid out some data to show that we're not making it up. We're not basing this off of our own personal opinions, and we're just isolated people. You can see the membership of this game dropping, and we've brought up a solution. Where's our solution? People always just point out problems, but what can PGI do? And we've now laid that out as well. It's on Reddit, it's on the forums, and we've addressed why we're doing it and where we hope it leads. And so, I mean, if you've got questions, RJ, if you know people with questions, if people in Twitch have a few questions, now is the time to, we could talk about that. And then I'm not sure there's anything else really to say, other than let's at Russ until he bans us all and has no friends.
All right, well, you heard it there, guys. If you have questions, something that you want us to talk about, put it in the Twitch chat right now. Tag me in it. Dane, you're in there, aren't you? Aren't you on Twitch? Are you watching?
Yeah, I'm in it. I'm in Twitch.
What's your name on Twitch?
It's also just one last thing as well. It's important if we get a little bit of success with what we're doing now with weapon balance, we might also be able to do the same around engine desync values and some mechs that are still suffering with that. So what we're doing here, I guess, is the first, and there's lots of other things we can look at as well, but this is I guess the first test case. And if this is successful, we can focus on small things that we can change within the game that would give the game more success. We're not going to obviously redo any systems in the game. We're not going to remove ghost heat. We're not going to look at new ways to introduce systems to balance things like energy draw. That's never going to happen. It's never going to be the purview of what we're trying to do here. But if this is successful, we can focus on small changes we can make and hopefully continue along this same path.
Okay.
Did King ask a question? How do you expect people to willfully give up crutched shit in favor of skill-based balance? The game is currently balanced to churn steamers for revenue. I don't think there's enough of us willing to go back to where the game has been balanced skill-wise. I think that's a question. It didn't end in a question mark. I don't know. What to go, Taro? Go!
Do you have any ideas on that, Val?
Oh, you just gave it to Val.
Because that's the thing I've heard him talk about before.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people and there's a lot of groundswell that aren't happy with Clan Laser Vomit and Laser Vomit in general. I guess that if you're pointing at anything, that would be the crutched shit that you're pointing at, I'm guessing. So even though I do, like, you might be correct in saying it's a bit of a crutch for skill, like, everyone's complaining about it. So I think they're willing to give that up. I don't necessarily see that as an option. I see that as an issue. I think as long as you're making the other systems fun and feel like they're rewarding because you can do damage and get kills with mechs and it's not super punishing, as long as you see reward for your actions in game with other weapon systems, I don't think it'll be much of an issue. But that's a pretty complex topic and there's a lot of different things to bring up, but that'd be my overall answer.
And that gets into numbers too that we don't understand, right? We don't know how many random steamers are coming into this game every week or every month. We don't know how many of them are sticking around. Like if that's the loss we're seeing on this is them leaving, or if it's more of the the heart and soul of this community, the people that are been playing BattleTech for the last 20 years and are just trying to keep playing it as long as they can.
Even let's look at those numbers again, right? The played 10 games or more. Is that the same people, as Dane just said, playing the 10 games a month, or is that a whole bunch of new Steam people coming in, trying it, buying something, going, oh, it's not for me, and moving on? We're not exactly sure of player retention, if we're getting high player intake and high player outtake, or if it's low player intake, low player outtake. We don't know what the Steam people are complaining about. Maybe they're trying other weapon systems and not being successful with them at all and go, oh, well, gee, I can't do anything in this game. It seems like lasers is the only strong weapon, or they don't try lasers. They try going in and brawling and they get beat up and killed before they even get into the game, or into range. It's a pretty difficult topic to break down without having some more hard facts and numbers, I think. Does that make sense?
I agree. All right.
I don't know if that's a great answer. Sorry, King.
We
don't know, man. What can we do?
Yeah, we don't
without
have
knowing.
Yeah, we don't have that data. That's the data that Chris was talking about 2 weeks ago. No, he can see that data. CGI can see that data.
We only can go as far as the Jarl's list will take us.
Yeah, and what he's talking about is kind of alluding to basically how do you approach balance as a whole in terms of who do you look at? Do you look at the top skill? Do you look at the bottom skill?
Middle.
Yeah. Do you balance from the top? Do you balance from the bottom, the middle? What do you look at? Who are you most concerned about balancing for? And that is literally a night's topic. You could spend talking about that.
Yeah, because
the answer for the answer for MechWarrior Online in regards to that question won't be the same as other games as well.
CGI always has to consider their entire community too. Take comp players who want things to be balanced one way, that may be completely different than what Saturday casual player will also want.
I'd almost say that competitive players are more open to things being unbalanced as long as there's a quicker continual shift in that balance. So they always have to find the next thing and be inventive and use their imaginations and thought processes when it comes to gameplay. I think the competitive, this is just my opinion again, but I think the competitive crowd are more open to things being slightly more unbalanced, but having things changed in more frequent iterations so that way they can play around and get enjoyment from different parts of the game. But that, again, just aside.
And the other thing is the environments for balancing. I mean, if you're balancing what you want to say is a casual experience, so you're going to a tier 3 and you're trying to balance a game off of what is happening in a tier 3 drop for players, there's almost no control in that kind of situation. There's so many variables. You know, everyone's taking probably subpar builds, or there's a lot of them around. Is a team going to do something, or are they going to all wander in different directions? Is someone getting on general VoIP and giving them commands that has like half an idea of how to play? And then the maps are different, and obviously people aren't building mechs for the maps because the maps are chosen after they build the mech. So then, did you bring a hot mech into a hot map, or did you end up with your hot mech in a cold map, or vice versa? The amount of variables at that level to balance are essentially it's impossible to do. Whereas in a competitive setting where you have the maps decided beforehand, there's similar weight discrepancies already been determined, and the makeup of a lot of these mechs that are bringing is already determined. You're gonna force out the imbalances. You're going to illuminate the imbalances, and you're going to discover them. And if you make it balanced at the highest level of play, that's Reaganomics. That's trickle down balance, people.
Yeah, because it's like the people at the higher part of the game, they're going to be exploiting weaknesses in the balance, whereas people in the lower tiers, not as much. I mean, you have to consider what's going on in the lower tiers, because it is a completely different climate of play, because they behave differently, fundamentally, from how higher skill players behave in the higher tiers.
There's a lot of truth to that. There's so much truth to that. I actually have 4 accounts in the game. And one of them I started just to see how fast I could get it from tier 5 to tier 3. 10, 12 drops was all it took. It was the skill levels down there. I mean, I do a lot of complaining about the PSR system. It's actually one of the topics I plan to bring up, discuss in detail with Paul, if he'll let me, next month when I interview him. I know where I mean, because being in the 228, having such high skill players, okay, having the Black Watch and everything, I know about where my PSR really should be and where it actually is. I'm cranked out at the max at tier 1. I should be somewhere, probably based off of how I play the game, mid tier 2 at best. But I'm not, and there are players playing in tier 2 and tier 1 who really shouldn't, a lot of other players who shouldn't be there either. But when you get down to tier 5, tier 4, I honestly think that those levels of the PSR system are the most accurate. I mean, unless you got somebody like me who's just trying to run the system to see what they can do with it real quick, most of the people playing in tier 5 and 4, they are much more genuine in their ranking, if that's the measurement that we're going by.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Go ahead, Val.
I think it becomes problematic though up at tier 1, because I think tier 1 just, I'm not as anti matchmaker and PSR system as probably most of you guys here. I think it's a tricky topic for a game that generally might have I think Steam shows somewhere between 1 to 1.5k concurrent players. So you might be looking at, like, plus the MWO launch, you might be looking at say 2 to 2.5k concurrent players. And when you're looking at like tier 1 is just guaranteeing like a base level. If you start splitting tier 1 up into smaller sections, the guys like already in tier 1, you're having a very hard time finding games outside of NA and maybe EU prime times. When you start segmenting players up into that top 3%, top 1%, like Grandmaster and Master that Overwatch does, like you're dealing with literally 50 to 100, maybe even not even 100 players, 50 players like concurrently online at the same time that are in that top 1% play group. And it's a 12v12 match, so you're going to have the same 50 guys playing against each other. It's assuming they're all in the same bucket. Like, what if you got some doing scouting, some doing CW, some doing solo, some doing group? Like, the top 1% are spread across. I think with our population in this game, I think matchmaking at the very top end is always going to be problematic, and I don't know what they can do about that. I think they've kind of got the best system that they can at the moment. There's always room for improvements. I think the big improvement they can do is to add solo players to check a box to go into group queue. I think that will solve a lot of the Tetris for group queue and make group queue a quicker queuing experience. And one solo player won't affect the quality of the matches either way. But I think as for that top end matchmaking, I'm really not sure what they can do just because of the literal size of player pool.
Well, there is one thing that they can do there, and it's already been proven to work in another game, another free-to-play game. And PGI actually talked about this a few months ago. Reduce the amount of players you can have on a team from 12 to 8. Go 8v8 again, just like it was in the beginning. Armored Warfare did this. They knocked down the maximum to like 5 tanks per team. When they did that, they greatly increased the waiting queue times, and they also increased player participation in the games. They didn't have to wait as long to get a drop anymore. It actually did wonders for Armored Warfare. Armored Warfare is one of the games I follow on Twitch, and for a while there were times I'd log on to Twitch and nobody was streaming the game. There was always somebody streaming Mech Warrior, but there were times when nobody was streaming Armored Warfare. And now, when I look at at the games I follow, there's a minimum of 50 people, it seems like, especially during prime time, streaming Armored Warfare now, whereas at other times there wasn't. And that's how big of a difference them scaling back how many people could be on a team really helped the game.
My counterpoint to that would be that I'm not sure if what works in that game would necessarily work here. I wouldn't rule it out. I just don't think it's as black and white as reducing players in the amount of games, because the maps that we have now are already so big. They've all been increased in size for 12v12. So there's going to be even more walking inside matches. Like, we already get games that are 12-1, 12-2s when you've got a few key people on the sides. I'm not as convinced. I understand where you're coming from. I understand your point of view, but I'd need to look at that in a lot more detail. I don't think that necessarily dropping down to 8v8 is healthy for the game. I'm not sure about that.
Anybody else got an opinion on that one?
I mean, I wouldn't mind. Val is he hasn't thought about it. He hasn't looked at it. I mean, he doesn't want to just say his opinion and then find out later that it isn't, wrong. And it's one of these things that sounds like a good idea, and it definitely, on the surface of it, I don't have any issue with it. I don't think any of us actually have a surface issue with it. We're not, in love with 12-on-12. I enjoyed 8-on-8. I remember back in those days, and I had fun, being a little bit more of a hero when it was you against at most 8 players, not against at most 12. But there's things like, how willing would PGI be to roll that back? And then there's also the consideration of group queue limits. I don't think PGI will ever roll back the limits like they used to be, but that could maybe solve some issues. But I feel like that's a Pandora's box. They've opened it. Everybody's so used to getting 12 of their friends online and dropping together at the same time that no one wants to go back to the old days when we could only have 4 people in a group, and you'd have 10 of your friends on, and then you got to make 3 different groups, and it kind of sucks. And then there's some segregation, like all the cool kids are obviously with me, and then the people I don't like as much are dropping by themselves, and they're talking to each other like, man, does they not like us? It's like, yeah, let's start a new unit. And they go start a new unit because they do kind of suck, but what can you do? They were good there for when you need the 8-on-8 fun, but a whole new
really happen,
can of worms. Well, of course not.
I wonder though, I wasn't as knee deep into the game back then as I am now, but I was always under the assumption that the 8v8 and max group of 4 was set up as kind of like a copy off of World of Tanks. In World of Tanks, you can only put 3 or 4 people into a group, and that they top you out at that. kind of always thought that was kind of a because I came the last free to play game that I played was such determination as I do MechWarrior Online was World of Tanks. So I pretty much came straight from World of Tanks into MechWarrior Online, and I remember all the similarities that I saw back then. But if they were to take it down to 8v8, Val, you did bring up that really good point about them, especially looking at a map like Polar Highlands, it's too big. You know, you already as it is with 12v12 on Polar Highlands, you have those matches where you got an ECM Raven running around somewhere and two mechs that aren't lights trying to track it down and find it just so they can end the match. It can be rather nerve-wracking at times, but you know it seems like, I mean, I don't know anything about video game design or development. I'm not going to claim that I do, but it feels like making a map smaller is a lot easier than making a map bigger.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know, and I think we weren't really, we're not prepared to give you a well thought out, kind of well researched response as far as 8-on-8 or 12-on-12. I mean, that's a PGI thing. I think if PGI likes it, I know they've heard it a lot. If they think they can do that,
they said it. Russ said
well,
it.
yeah, they've said it, but then I've heard since they've said it, they've kind of said it wasn't on the table either anymore.
Oh,
I think he throws a lot of things out.
You're breaking my heart, man.
I think they throw a lot of things out there to get player feedback on them and general perception about stuff before they've actually made any decisions, you know. So maybe he was just throwing that out there to see what he got back. I may concede that you will get slightly better matchmaking in 8v8, but I'm still not convinced that 8v8 will give you a better overall player experience, even with improved matchmaking, because of a whole bunch of other issues around it. But that's just my 2 cents.
I mean, yeah, 8-on-8 is something you should talk to Bombadil or Paul or one of them. You know, push that with them, see what they say. You know, PGI doesn't even like us, so we don't know.
Okay, that part bugs me because you guys aren't. I mean, you were very specific about it in your video. You're not the enemy. You want the game to be good. You want the players to return. I don't really see how PGI can disagree with that, because technically the more people that are playing the game, the more money they make, right? I don't you said in your video you're not the enemy, and I don't think you are.
I'm sure elements of PGI there's probably someone in there that watched our video and goes, yeah, I've been telling the man that forever, and the man, he doesn't listen. And then he whispers something about the gulag and comrades, and then he doesn't, and then he goes back to coding in like a dark basement. But I feel like from the top down, like the way they've always kind of dealt with community feedback and the way they've dealt with even constructive criticisms has generally been not something they like. And the few times I've attempted to interact with them, and they've just kind of come off to me as, you know, they want to do what they're wanting to do, and they don't really want to get involved with what we're doing. And I mean, that's their prerogative. Like, I'm not boycotting their game. I'm not, you know, burning effigies of Paul and Russ in my driveway. I leave that. Oh well, no, that's so much work to make an effigy. Have you made an effigy, Val? I can't just go to the store and buy a Paul and Russ effigy, all right, for $5. Let's be serious here. But
gotcha.
I think we can talk to maybe if anyone in the community, if we want to go on with question, has another question that's maybe not related to 8-on-8 or 12-on-12.
I'm coughing up along when the microphone push to talk button's off, so I don't have much longer. I might have to take off.
Does anybody have a final question for Val before he dies due to the Australian flu epidemic of 2018?
Yeah, can I have all your mechs?
Well,
yeah, you can
sure.
have my mechs. Got my mechs.
What about free mechs and trips to Vancouver? Can Val get that too?
Look, I'll say it again. You pointed out in your video, I don't fucking hide it. 'Cause I do still enjoy playing the game, and I like getting free mechs and trips to Vancouver. Okay, make another meme, please, because that shit was funny as hell.
I think we're good, Val. You can probably go lay down.
All right, peace, everyone. Thanks for having
Val.
me, RJ. I'll catch you later.
All right,
Terragato, play
man.
his song. Play his song, Terragato. Play him out. Play him out. Terragato. You can't go yet, Val. Terragato's gonna play you out.
Okay, I'm waiting.
Oh yeah, we're all waiting now. He didn't expect this.
You put
Do
me on
it.
the spot because I don't have the short version yet.
Do
So
it.
y'all have to listen to the long
Yeah,
version.
it's not even.
Wait, what?
That's not it.
Then like rays burning bright, the Thou Father joined the fight, wielding wisdom and strength alike. He rallied us, never meant to strike. With the Thou Father's ever-red gleam, he brought the enemy to his knee. We broke the back of our foe, ensuring that fear was all that he'd know.
Farewell, Val Father.
I wish you had a of me at the moment. I got a smile ear to ear. Thanks for that, boys. I'll
See
catch
ya.
you later.
Well, yes, in the Isengrim, of course, our great heroes have songs about them, RJ Bass. I'm not the only one that has their songs. But
That's great. That's great. All right, so final questions for these guys, everybody. If you got a topic that you want to discuss, you have a question for Dane and Terragato. They're both still here, obviously. There's one there from Fragosaurus.
no, we can't talk about 8-on-8, 12-on-12. We're not qualified.
Yeah, we just spent a lot of time talking about that.
Oh, Terragato. I'll let Terragato answer that one. Unless he's.
I mean, that's
There
a
you go.
technical thing on PGI's end. We can't answer that. Like, I think you're asking, like, if Matchmaker has a really hard time finding 12 or 24 pilots for a match. Like, maybe it's a low hours in AP Australian time zone, and Matchmaker is there's just not enough people online. Matchmaker is struggling. Then just, switch gears so everything is 8v8 instead. Or maybe if it's really bad and there's just nobody playing, you switch gears and it's only 4v4. Like, that doesn't sound like a bad idea to me, but is that technically possible from PGI's end? I have no clue.
Yeah. Be interesting. But speaking of low population times during Australia, Paul mentioned, I think it was during one of the Masters challenges last week or before, that they're going to put a couple of servers to test them out actually in Australia to help with their pings. I wish Val was still here because he's the Australian, but
The comment that I've gotten from Australians was, yeah, that'd be great if we actually had Australians. But hopefully it'll bring some back.
Yeah, because I mean, I know that's one thing that they struggle with is the constant shit pings. If they want drops, they gotta drop NA, and then they have to, they have that suffering with their terrible pings, because we all know the connections to Australia are absolute shit. So if their servers actually were in Australia, it seems like if they could then get a decent ping, and their fellow Australians started getting back online because they could get a decent ping, that it stands a chance at least bringing Australian populations back up.
I mean, it's better than nothing. I
Yeah.
think, like Terragato said, the main comment is it's gonna make it better for the people already playing it, but there's already so few playing it. Is it gonna really bring more back? Like, I can't tell you. I don't know. It probably would have been nice if they did it a lot earlier than now, when there were more Australians playing. But I also don't know if that's really the main reason Australians stopped playing.
Ash is saying that has nothing to do with it.
Host State Rewind has actually been pretty good for that community. I know there's lots of games with Val that we can't play just because of the lag desync, but MWO does handle it relatively well. I mean, obviously it's not perfect. Obviously they're dropping with 300 ping all the time, but I think for the most part they adapt to it, and they're rolling right with us in the highest levels of competitive play.
Yeah, we still have our Aussie team, the 228, is actually still very active, but they do. I have heard complaints. Jay-Z has talked about how when they're trying to drop during their Aussie drunk night, their weekly drunk night, they constantly have to do faction warfare because for some reason they can only get drops in faction warfare, and they can't get standard group drops. And it was last I checked, faction warfare was all North America, right? That's the only place the faction warfare servers are. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I think that's how it was.
I don't know.
No, that's correct.
So in which case they're dropping North America anyways.
So yeah, I don't. I think like Ash is saying in there, and what I've heard from Val is that's not the main reason those players stop playing, and so it might have little impact on the player numbers. Maybe it helps retain some of them. Again, that we're just guessing. I'm not an expert on that matter. I just only know what members of the community have told me.
That's all I get too. I mean, I get a little bit of information. I was talking with Darren earlier. I get little things here and there, but I'm not a PGI employee. They're not going to talk to me about all the things. Well, we heard it in the interview with Chris. There was a lot of things he couldn't answer just because he's not allowed to. So there's just some information that we're not gonna. I don't think we're ever going to be privy to.
Yeah, we pieced together what we got on the outside. And I think the real question is, and PJ will never tell us, not because of anything nefarious on their part, but it's bad business to tell us, and that is the relationship with MWO at this late stage, the relationship with MechWarrior 5, and kind of what their plan is beyond kind of the immediate future. Like, we know we have Solaris in the works, but is that kind of like a that thing they're to get us to that point? Are they going to rebuild MechWarrior Online in the Unreal Engine? That was it, right? Once they're done with MechWarrior 5, are they going to use those skills to come back to this game? Are they doing it already? Is MechWarrior Online really kind of in a B team kind of over here? People just kind of keeping the wheels running while everybody else is really working hard on MechWarrior 5. MechWarrior 5 is going to have a co-op mode. Are they going to expand MechWarrior 5 into more online play? Is it going to be the successor to this game? And obviously they're not going to tell us because they don't want us to all stop playing it. But I mean, and that's something we just won't know till after it happens. But that's going to have a lot to do about the viability of this game and the viability of them listening to us at this point. Maybe they have hard plans ahead that they know they're going to do, or maybe they really don't care, or we don't know. We don't know where they're coming from, and it's not possible for us to know where they're coming from.
No. And if they're, I mean, the one thing that I have been told is that the port of MWO or MWO 2.0 has been talked about, but that's it.
And I know even at MechCon, not the recent one, but the first MechCon, like when they announced MechWarrior 5, at that point all they would say is they're not porting MechWarrior Online into Unreal, but maybe after they get MechWarrior 5 into Unreal, they'll come back to MechWarrior Online, and that's obviously over a year old, that information. So
oh yeah, and the most recent information is really no different from that. It's something that's been briefly discussed from what I heard, and if it were to happen, not to the 2020. So that's something that would be a long way.
And I mean, like I said in my video, and we're saying now, is we want this game to work. I know we're hard on PGI sometimes, but we want them to succeed. Our goal is not to convince people to stop playing this game. Our goal is not to hope that PGI crashes and burns so we can wait 20 years for another IP to make MechWarrior Online.
Yeah, that would not work at all. I don't like that idea.
our goal isn't to make to get people fired. Our goal isn't to get Chris in trouble or to make Paul cry like a single little tear. Our goal is just to have fun. Our goal is to if we can't get the population increasing, if this game's so old, and it's where it is, and to at least stabilize it, and to get a few of those people back who were invested in this game playing it again because they feel better about playing it, and to just make the daily the present experience in it better. We can hope as much as we want that Solaris is going to be great, and it looks exciting at very least. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't, but we're playing the game today, right? We're not playing the game in 3, 4, 6 months or whenever it releases. And let's not let PGI treat us this time like they don't need to listen. Let's be heard. Well,
let's keep the conversation going, and keep talking about it. Keep sharing your opinions. Everybody's opinion matters. We're all part of this same community here. Every voice should be heard. Now, whether it gets factored into their proposal, that's a different story. But you can at least share your opinion on the forums, on the Reddit link that I just sent. Let them know what you want, what you would want to see happen. And then that way they can form a better proposal to give to PGI, and we keep it going. We keep the conversation going.
Yeah, I mean it's only the beginning, right? We brought up the problem, we've discussed the issues with it, and now we've formatted a solution, and we will especially not Terragato and the Gulag with Bear Claw and Proton and Beef and a few others will work on winnowing it down and making it something digestible by PGI. If they want to make that move, make it easy to do and make it as popular as possible, and then see if it happens. And I know Paul's gonna actually address this the storm we started tomorrow. I don't know when we'll actually get to see it. I know he's going to film it tomorrow. I don't know when it'll be up.
Yeah,
but
they're recording a podcast tomorrow.
So it'll be interesting to see what he says. It'll be interesting to see if they're dismissive or if they're interested or if they understand us or if they don't. Like that's gonna be really important for how we proceed. If it's just like, oh, it's a bunch of players, whining about the game. What can you do? And then let's move on. It'll be hard, but. Yeah. There's an underlining truth behind our concerns, and it's our hope that we can get them to see it, and we can give them a workable solution to it. And I don't think there's much more to say about that at this point.
All right. Well, Dane, why don't we call it quits here? Dane and Terragato, thank you very much for having this conversation. And for the things that you guys are doing to keep the conversation going. I appreciate it. I'm sure others do as well. So,
Terragato, play me out.
Certainly, my Jarl.
He's for every one of us. Stand for every one of us.
and there he goes. All right. I'll turn that off. And I'm going to end the stream here, kids. Thank you very much for tuning in. Appreciate it. Time is it? Yeah, I'm going to be done for the night. So, you all have a great night. Hope you got something out of this. And we will see you all again Friday for the Happy Hour show. Peace, y'all.